We are live, and I am here with Nila out of Virginia District 2 in the southeast corner, right next to me. And this is the candidates of our Dreams series. And before we get started with the interview, I just want to lay out a couple of ground rules that I always lay out at the beginning of each of these. First is this is not a purity politics zone. We are here to hear from the candidates directly about what issues are affecting their district specifically, but also the kinds of federal policy that they would advance. And to be honest, we have a lot of different solutions to the same problems. And some of those solutions need to be combined in order to be effective. So we don't want to walk in with some preconceived notion about what we want to hear from the candidate. Hear from them first, maybe disagree later or discuss more later, but please keep an open mind. The second ground rule is that this is not just for your entertainment. I am sure Neela and I will be amazingly entertaining throughout and you will have the best time. And then after you're done having the best time, when I send out this recording later with links and everything to her social media, her website, her campaign, I expect you to participate. And if you, especially if you're in Virginia too, this is your person. And if you are not, but you are looking for ways to get involved, these are the types of action items we're going to talk about are things you should be doing in your own communities. Or let's say you're in a place where you're like, I love my rep. I love my rep at all levels. I don't really have too many concerns about them. They're doing great. They're campaigning great. They're, fine. Great. If you feel like that's really your situation, maybe plug into Neela's campaign from afar because you can volunteer and donate from afar. So, with all of that lead up, Neela, will you please introduce yourself to the people listening now and who will be listening later?
Of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Nila Devanath, and I am a candidate running in Virginia's 2nd Congressional District. I am a Hampton Roads native. I grew up here in Chesapeake and Suffolk, went to high school at Nansemond Suffolk Academy, and my parents actually immigrated here from Bangladesh over 40 years ago. So we've been here for quite some time. And now there are about I think 35 of us, and we all live 10 minutes from each other. So, as some of you may know who are following the campaign, I just had a baby about 7 weeks ago, and he is amazing. But I have plenty of babysitters, so it's just awesome. I am a doctor here. I work as an acute care hospital doctor, so I work in emergency rooms, hospital wards, and the ICU throughout Hampton Roads. And I'm also an attorney. So about 10 years ago, I used to be an attorney. Yes, yes, indeed. I took care of domestic violence survivors and folks, tenants who were trying to stay in their homes, and fight against slumlords. Um, and I also helped immigrant children who were crossing the border, specifically from Honduras, and a couple of other things as well. Um, Went to some fancy smancy schools up north, Harvard and Yale, but Hampton Roads is my home. It's my community. It's where I serve. It's where my entire family lives. So I'm just glad to be here.
Wonderful. So first of all, I didn't realize you had also been a lawyer before. I've missed that completely. So you got all the doctor's degrees. You got the
I know.
medical doctor,
I'm like,
you got the juris doctor, you got all the things.
I
Um,
love learning.
I love that so much. So now just need a PhD, and then
Yeah,
you'll be
no,
set.
I don't have, the patience for a PhD because, that takes so long. I mean, yes, this was a long process as well, but PhD folks, you guys have it. You guys have your own schedule and your own stigma, so
Amazing. Doctor twice over, Neela. I guess technically Juris Doctor is a doctor, but I like to call it that, so we don't care.
yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for choosing to run. And I want to unpack that real quick. So, what is the why behind running in CD2? I mean, obviously, boo, Jen Kiggins, but besides that, right? We don't just run because we're running against something, we're running for something. So what is the why, I guess? Is there a story you have or that
Yeah.
moment I'm running for Congress?
Honestly, for me, it was my patience, so
Mm.
I was an attorney 10 years ago, but basically I've been a doctor for almost 10 years now. And I've been practicing in Hampton Roads for years. And what I see on a daily basis in the hospital is pretty scary stuff. You
Mhm.
know, I pretty much every other patient that I take care of is a veteran or is active duty. And I cannot tell you how many patients I've seen where a small, like, toe infection is untreated because it takes, like, 9 months to get an appointment at the VA, and by the time they make it to the hospital, I always tell my patients this, I was like, "It's wonderful to see you, and I hope I never see you again, because if I see you, that means
Yeah.
something terrible has gone wrong," has happened, so we every week, probably every week that I'm in the hospital, we are doing toe amputations and foot amputations. Every 2 months, I'm calling up the surgeon to cut off somebody's leg, like, below the knee, above the knee. That was just a couple months ago now, and it gives you a different perspective when I feel like I'm practicing wartime medicine, right? Like,
Mm,
amputations.
right.
Why am I practicing wartime medicine when we are supposedly in this great era of peace and prosperity,
In the world
right?
versus country, right.
In the world, in the country, what Jen Kiggin says, like, "Oh, everything's amazing," right? Like, no, it's not amazing. Like, there are people suffering, there are people in my family, there are people, my neighbors, my patients, and, for me, I think universal healthcare is
Mhm.
something that all people deserve. Like, as human beings, we deserve to be healthy, right? We
Yeah.
deserve to have our fortitude about us and not let simple sicknesses or even greater sicknesses that we have the tools to solve take us down, right? One person is sick, you're like, okay, one person's sick. No, that affects, their mom, that affects their children, their families, right? Spouses, it affects the community and the work environment and that business, right, that they might work for. So it has rippling effects when one person is ill. And we have the tools, we have the technology, we have the science for this not to happen. And by the way, I believe that we also have the funding to make this a reality. Um, so that is what I'm for. But also, really what pulled the trigger for me, I have to be honest, is when Jen Kagan signed the big, big,
Mm,
ugly bill.
mhm.
Because when she signed it, I was like, wait, what? I was like, hold on a second.
Yeah.
I'm a doctor. You're a nurse practitioner. I take care of veterans. You are a veteran.
Mhm.
How,
Right.
how is it possible that you would sign this bill?
Yeah.
Like, if you're seeing what I'm seeing in District 2 in Hampton Roads, you would never sign that bill.
Right.
And, like I said, I've been here for many years now as a physician, and when the bill got signed, it just made me so mad. And I was like, I'm gonna do something about it.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know what? I used to be a lawyer. I was like, let me put this, like, Harvard law degree to use because I clearly have not been using it very much. um, so I looked it up and I filled out the paperwork and we started running, basically last summer. It's almost
Mhm.
been oh my God, it's almost been a year. So yeah, that is the reason why I'm running. And I think that I'm the right person for the job because of what I stand for.
Amazing. The Big Beautiful Bill, ooh, of all of sorry, gathering my
Yeah.
thoughts. Of the entire Republican congressional delegation from Virginia, all the Republicans who voted for it in
Mhm.
Congress, Jen Kiggins to me was the most egregious for all the reasons that you just said. I'm like, if anyone knew better, it was her.
Yep.
And I know that sounds like maybe dramatic or whatever, but when you look at like Ben Klein, Rob Whitman, Morgan Griffith, whatever, like Morgan Griffith, I think is just stupid and incompetent, to be honest. Jen is not stupid and incompetent.
Sure.
And that is what really pissed me off about the whole thing. Is I was just like, you are so willfully harming not only like just people in general, but veterans. And you
Mhm.
represent
Mhm.
C2.
Yep.
How you do this? Like, that really was my reaction, and so
Yep.
your reaction sounds very level-headed and normal to me. My reaction was like, you
No,
like that.
no, I mean, listen, I was there with you and I needed to channel my energy into something good and something positive, and this is the way that I saw to do it because I agree with you. She has, like, in-depth knowledge in-depth experience. I mean, her patients are the same as my patients. She's a geriatrician by trade. Most of the people that I see in the hospital are community members, veterans, and active duty who happen to be, well, the active duty members are younger, but the veterans happen to be in that same age range, right? And these are the people that are suffering is like, you know, the folks in our community who have given so much over their entire lives.
Mhm.
Um, the grandfathers, the grandmothers, right? Like, yes, I'm with you.
Amen. All right. Well, along those lines, let's get into the issues and we'll start with let's go ahead and start with healthcare because we're there, we're talking about it, and I think it's the perfect segue. With you brought up something before we went live that I definitely want to dig into is you obviously believe in universal health care. And
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of plans out there for universal health care. And we can definitely talk about, what I want to hear from you is how we get from where we are, which is like the exact opposite of universal health care to universal health care because you're being elected for a 2-year term. And what you'll be able to accomplish in those 2 years are steps towards not
Yeah,
anyone as I
agreed.
keep telling you all, anyone who's selling you universal health care the next 2 years is lying to you. It is way too broken to do that. However, there are definitely intervening steps we can take. But please discuss more about the connection between Medicaid, the cuts that were made to the big beautiful bill, the need for universal health care, and veterans, because when we're talking to CD2, we are talking to military folks, whether it's current, active duty, veterans, spouses and family and children of veterans or active duty. Like, the military is so I cannot explain to you all how integral the military is to Hampton Roads, and so this is really the subject matter. So please, explain.
Of course, 100%. So that's kind of one of my areas of specialty and kind of sticking points is the big connector of all of those things that you mentioned is Medicaid.
Mhm,
So in our community, which is about 12%, military, active duty, which means there's a lot of folks who aren't, but they're still related to them and, family members, like you said. A lot of folks switch over to Medicaid from TRICARE and from the VA system. Why do our military folks do that? It's because the VA system, throughout the entire country, by the way, because I've worked for the VA, I used to be a provider at the VA, is incredibly stressed.
mhm.
In CD2 and in Hampton Roads, it's even more stressed because we have a higher
I know.
population,
It's
right?
terrible.
It's
People
terrible. And, they just opened up that center in Chesapeake,
that's
which is
still not
completely understaffed.
right? Yep.
So it's like we have a nice building
Mhm,
and there's nobody
right.
in it to take care of
Didn't
people.
Doug Collins, just so everyone knows, when they did the ribbon cutting last February 2025 or whatever it was, he did the ribbon cutting and was like, "Don't worry, people, it will totally be staffed by the summer." And it is May 2026, and it is not staffed,
Nope.
even 2/3, I think, of what they need. So, yeah, it was like, "Thank you for opening that, I guess." Like you said, a nice building, but nothing in it.
Yeah. Nice building, not enough staffing, doesn't fix the need here in our district. And what Medicaid does is it allows veterans and active duty and families to go into the community and go to a primary care provider, go get specialty care, like community primary care providers, right? Because there are so many more community doctors and nurse practitioners and specialists than what is available in the VA. So, hey, now I have this insurance that allows me to, spread that burden of healthcare throughout the community and I can actually get the care I need in a more timely fashion. The bill has cuts to Medicaid. And what's really interesting, which I'm sure your followers probably know because you could do that deep dive into policy, but a lot of folks are not aware that it's a very sneaky cut to
Mhm,
Medicaid. It's not a direct cut.
right. It's
It
an
is
interesting cut.
exactly. It's
Mhm,
exactly paperwork. That's what it is. Right. So what they say is for Medicaid, you had to fill out your paperwork to be eligible once a year.
mhm,
Now you have to fill it out twice a year. And while that may not seem like, oh, yeah, I just have to fill it twice. First of all, think about doing your taxes. I hate doing my taxes. It's so hard sometimes. It's not as easy as it always seems. And when you have to do that twice a year, imagine people who are working families, right? We're working 2, 3 jobs just to get by. We got all the kids to take care of. How are you gonna remember that? And you're like, "Well, we're all adults. We should just remember it." Well, no. I mean, what real life is that the more administrative burdens you put on something, the less likely it is to get done.
Mhm,
And the folks who pass this know that, right? They know it from statistical, psychological data, right?
mhm.
And so there you can predict if I increase the burden from 1 to 2,
Right.
there is a certain percentage of people that just won't do it. They won't have time or they'll forget. And here's the dangerous part. If you forget to fill out this paperwork, boom, you're without health care for 6 months.
Right.
There's no process to really like, "Oh, I just forgot. Can I just" No. All of those things are wiped out.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting for our veterans because if you're a disabled veteran, depending on if you're not 100% disabled,
Mhm.
if you're not 100% disabled,
Mm.
you now have to fill out your paperwork twice a year. And if you forget,
Right.
no health insurance for you for 6 months,
Yeah. Which is
which is
it was so
life or death.
right, right. Life or death. Also, it's asinine because most disabilities, very few exceptions, are permanent, right?
Yep.
So it's like, what are we re-verifying here? Like, my leg did not suddenly grow back.
Yep.
My eyesight was not restored. We're talking about people who endured like combat usually, and like that's like the source of their disability, or like my PTSD is not going away. I need that's the PTSD thing. Secretary of
Right.
VA, Doug Collins, that's a whole other thing right there that he tried to mess with. We don't have time to unpack that, but, like, just know that Doug Collins is one of the most hated beings in this channel right here, and there are lots of being in Hampton Roads is one of them. One of the reasons why is because I see the fallout, but it really getting back to, like you said, the cuts to Medicaid, the absolute, like, cruelty of it because it was so intentional and yet kind of, like, gave them the appearance of being able to say, "Oh, it's just
Oh, yeah.
no
Right.
one cut any money,
Right.
it's not a big deal," and trying to also say that the people who would get cut are, kids playing video games in their parents' basement or whatever they said. I'm like, "No, it's what you said, it's veterans. It's veterans who need Medicaid in order to actually
Mhm.
access it in a timely fashion instead of waiting years and years and years to see
Yep.
somebody." Literally years, people. And they end up getting cut
Yep.
because they didn't recertify again that they're still an amputee or that they still have a spinal cord injury or that
Right. Right.
insert thing. It's absolutely it's disgusting. Um, Tell me more because we could go on a
Yeah.
rage for a
No, I
while.
mean, I know, yeah, yes,
But
it's
tell me more
horrendously.
about, like, if I were to hand you a magic wand, I love this question. If I were to hand you a magic wand and you were elected in January 2027, you sit down with your colleagues for the 120th Congress. What is the legislation you're writing right away that you feel like would start to take steps towards fixing what we're talking about, getting us to universal health care, however you want to go with that?
Yeah. I think having okay, so steps, right? Because one of the things that you've mentioned, right, is this is an incremental process, right?
Mm, important.
Nobody in 2 years is going to quote unquote fix healthcare and have universal healthcare. Like we do need universal healthcare and to get this country on board in order to do that in agreement with each other
Mhm.
is going to take a lot. We can do it and we can show people why it's needed because it's literally just like humanity. But it's still going to take some time. So in a 2-year term, what I would probably start with is at least a Medicare for all option, right?
Mhm.
And there is a governmental insurance option that is available to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're over 65 or under 65, if you're over an income level or under an income level. It it just exists and you can buy into it. What this is going to do, because usually, as anybody who like works in and we do have a lot of federal workers here, so like government contractors and civilian contractors who work for the government or for the military. And what that will do is it's going to create a much cheaper option that is going to challenge private insurance companies, right? It is going to force them to reckon with their prices and to
Mhm.
bring those down. How long will that take? It's a little bit hard to say. It's probably I mean, honestly, it could happen probably within a year or two because those healthcare those private insurance companies are going to know this is going to affect their market share, right? So they're going to try to do something in about a year or so before the government drops its own Medicare for all plan. So that would be the first step. But I do think that kind of looking to the future, right? Um, 20 years down the road, or maybe hopefully faster than that, maybe 10, maybe 15, I don't know. But yeah, please, like when my kid is before my kid goes to college, I mean,
Right.
oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
If we could have a universal healthcare option, I do think it's possible with bills that provide that funding. So, there's Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren with Make Billionaires Pay Their Fair Share Act, and then the multimillionaire, the ultra wealth tax
Yeah.
act with Elizabeth Warren. So both of those create revenue streams that can actually provide funding for this very, very large program. Are we willing to do that? I think we need to elect a younger generation or it doesn't even have to be a younger generation. If you believe that these things can
Political
happen,
will.
political
Elect
will.
will.
Right. That's absolutely right. If you
Yeah.
think that billionaires should be taxed to provide domestic programs for us all, because guess what? They're making their money off of working people,
Right.
then yes, we can find revenue streams that will support this. So um, it's a long way off, but there are ways we can start towards that now. And by the way, if we do pass these revenue streams, it's going to take some time to collect that money,
Correct.
right? Before it goes
For
into
enforcement, not
right.
get the IRS. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I I actually saw this in the chat as a question, but that's perfect because 'cause we're actually getting ready to talk about it. You have a commitment in your campaign to not take corporate PAC money, and before I, have you answer this, I will do my usual song and dance that I do about not all PACs are the same, not all PACs are created equal. There is a difference between a corporate PAC and a special interest PAC versus, like, a labor union PAC. Like, there's lots of PACs, people that advocate for a lot of things, and some of them are good, and in fact, the origins of PACs are actually very, like, union focused and,
Mhm.
like, that kind of thing, like, it was how ordinary people could band together, make their voices heard in a louder fashion to their electeds. And then as usually happens, rich people were like, "That looks cool. Why don't we fund" and, and then Dark Money and Citizens United and all that shit happened, and, unfortunately, we're here. Um, but there is a huge difference between Dominion Energy's PAC, for instance, and a PAC that represents labor unions. So, Mila, please tell us what your campaign finance situation is like as far as like what you're committing to, not just your campaign, but also if you were elected, what you would commit to as an elected official.
Yes, absolutely. So we are part of the End Citizens United Unrig Washington campaign. We have taken the pledge to not take any corporate PAC donations, and also just on myself, we are also not taking any foreign interest
Mhm.
PAC
Mhm.
donations, for instance, like APAC. We are I am for term limits in Congress, right? Even though that would give me less time to kind of work on these issues, I think new voices are really important, right? I don't want to be the old fogey that doesn't understand TikTok that we're going into the future. No, which by the way, I don't really understand TikTok. So,
Neither do I.
so
I use it and I still don't understand it. So,
millennials. Yes. So but I don't wanna be that person, and I think we always need the new generation to be a part of the conversation, and if, like, we keep holding on to the old people, like, unfortunately, both parties, but particularly the Democratic Party is doing right now, we will suffer the consequences, which is what we are currently seeing. Um, um, but yes, no corporate PAC donations, ban on congressional stock trading, for individual stocks,
mhm.
and you know, basically trying to end the financial corruption that is really behind both parties.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hearing a commitment to integrity. Like you want to hear your voters, you want their voices to be loud, and you don't want to be swayed by, hey, $50,000, which would sound really good to your campaign right now, wouldn't it? And that, it's unfortunate because I feel like with House members in particular, which is what you're running for, because your terms are only 2 years, there's kind of this joke of like, you run for a year, you get elected, you get a year to do policy, and then you have to go run for another year, right, and fundraise. And I understand that joke, and what's crazy is that I am a professional fundraiser for nonprofits and nonpartisan stuff, but I understand the need. If you're talking to anyone, if there's anyone who's like progressive or whatever and understands the need for revenue, it's your girl right here. Like I get that it costs money to do things. That's just reality. And I also believe I mentioned political will. Political will is going to become my new catchphrase in the next
Yeah.
couple of weeks, I think. When you create policies that serve your voters, they are actually not stupid. They
Yep.
actually will. Like,
Yep.
if, if it's things that, demonstrably improve their lives, and that at the end of the day, everyone gets one vote. Like, like, it just brass tacks at the end of the day, and you can either, be like, "Oh, if I just spend a bunch of money and be on radio and stuff," I'm like, "Yeah, that do those things, I guess." But also, especially if you're an incumbent, pass laws, like, do
Right.
work.
Do the
It
do the
show
actual work of yeah, show up in the community, right?
Mhm,
Show up in the community, do the work to represent folks. Make sure your promises are true, right? Those are like the 3 things. Um, I am running currently in a primary,
mhm,
and there are folks who are running who are not have not kind of followed those principles. Um, and I'm running to be different, right? I'm not here to like go into Congress and then magically make multiple millions of dollars
mhm,
in Facebook stock and then come out as a multimillionaire and then disappear from the community.
mhm.
I can't do that, right? Because no matter what, my family's here and I am working
Right,
in the public sector pretty much every day.
right.
Um, so yes, I
Yeah.
hear you on, and it makes me angry. It
Yeah,
makes me
no,
angry when people in who y you know what
no,
I'm
I know. It's it's
I was like, "Am
frustrating.
I allowed to say it?" I don't know if I can say it, but can I say it? I don't know.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. It's your interview,
Okay.
so
Well, yeah, so for folks out there who are watching this, in this primary, please vote. Early voting starts on June 18th and
Mhm,
it ends on August 4th. I
yep,
am running in a primary against our former Congressperson, Elaine Luria,
mhm,
who unfortunately did go back on her word about taking corporate PAC money, APAC money, and also disappeared from the community when we really needed it. And I'm trying to be a different voice from that as somebody who is here every day.
yeah,
Um, and also, this by the way is a really historic election in some ways because if if I get the honored opportunity to actually work for the people of District 2, I would actually be the first person of color in the
mhm,
district history.
yeah.
So anyways, I just say let's make history, not repeat it. So
No, I appreciate that, and, yeah, there's a lot to say about Virginia CD2 that we won't get into right now because it would take too long, and also because again, the reason I do these interviews is so candidates have a chance to say what they're running for, right? And I
yeah,
think Neela's made herself very clear that she knows this district. Everything she's saying, I'm telling you, as another Hampton Roads person, I'm in a different district, but like we're literally right next to each other.
yeah,
I'm in a weird gerrymandered district that like scoops out a little piece of what would be two in a normal world.
yep,
It's very strange. But I'm telling you that in this community, what she is talking about, these are the very real, very like urgent needs. If you're not talking about veterans healthcare, if you're not talking about corruption in politics, if you're not talking about those things, like no one cares. Like that's just like you have to leading with veterans healthcare is what told me that Neela was the real deal because this is probably one of the most pressing issues. There's a couple others and I'm not saying that those issues don't matter, but when it comes to things that are like life and death right now, that is the most urgent. Okay, so Neela, let's talk about you just talked about early voting, but we're gonna like run it down. Is there anyone else in the primary? Or is it just the two of you right now?
There is I believe there are two other people in the primary. I think Bill Fleming and Patrick Mosov. Um, but as far as kind of like general contenders goes, I think that um, it's Elaine versus myself in
Okay.
the
All right.
primary. Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure. So we have
yeah.
as
If
in
you look on the like Ballotpedia, I think there's a couple other folks.
yeah,
But
right.
and that's the thing about this primary, which I think that healthy primaries are good for democracy,
Yes.
right? When we put our when this establishment puts its thumb on the scale and says, we're going to crown somebody before we even get to talk to any of the other candidates in the room, that really shocks me,
Yeah.
right? That really bothers me because we have so many great folks that were running in this primary. Like, I think there were 8 of us at some point,
Right.
and now we're essentially down to 4, but really truly 2. And the reason for that is because so many people were pushed out,
Mhm.
right? I know folks who got phone calls from people saying, "Hey, like, even though you raised all this money and definitely show that you can, like,
Right.
bring the fight, um, you need to step down
Yeah.
because, you know,
Yeah.
Elaine is running." And so a lot of really great folks who were, like, really active in the community, along with myself, I saw them on the campaign trail everywhere, had to go.
Right.
Or they didn't have to go, but they are gone. And I was
Right.
just like, "Guys, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it's they think it's maybe not to my benefit to have so many people in the primary, maybe it is, but either way, I was like, "You guys were great. Come on back."
Right.
But, people are scared.
Yeah.
People are scared. And
It's a
I
scary dynamic,
I
guys.
hate that. I
So
hate that. It's like, don't be scared to just represent people and be another voice. Like,
right.
let us let us celebrate discussion. Let us celebrate multiple options and multiple choices, right? When we don't primary, things like what happened with, in the presidential election, right, with Biden and Harris, people lose trust when you don't have choices.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree. The whole Biden-Harris situation is again a whole other conversation to have at a different time, that I would love to have with you. But so Nila, we have 5 4 people in the primary. As you said, early voting is starting in June, and then our deadline is August 3rd or 2nd. I'm sorry, I like lost my mind for a
So,
second.
the early voting is ends August 1st, and then election day is August 4th.
4th. Okay, right.
Yeah, so there's like a weird, like, 2-day gap, right?
Mhm,
Second.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
always, like, a gap between
Yeah.
when they end early voting and whatnot. But yeah, so it's really, like, right now, in a month, we will begin the early voting process, and as most of you know, just so you know, Virginia went through a redistricting situation. We were waiting on SCOVA. SCOVA came back and said, "That's not a thing that you're gonna be doing." It is being appealed to the Supreme Court right now. I have zero expectation the Supreme Court of the United States is going to do anything about what Scova said,
They're
and
just gonna
especially
pass it back to the lower courts, I promise you.
right, and especially because if they tried to use the reasoning that they literally just used for Louisiana, it would be the exact opposite of what they just told Louisiana. So anyway, I have plenty of content about that. I am not gonna hijack Neela's interview, raging about
Listen,
that
this
'cause
is great. I love the legal part of it because I used to do that too, so
yeah.
this is awesome.
I'm really frustrated right now. So, but I am very hopeful after speaking with you about this race. And where can people find you? What is your website? What are your social media handles? All that kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. So you can find us at our website. It's nilaforcongress.com. So that's NILAFOR Congress.com. On Instagram, it's Nila for Congress. And then I think on Facebook, it's actually Nila Devanath, which I don't know why. I think we started it that way. And then we kind of, first time candidate, we're transitioning, but you
Well,
can
also,
find us on Facebook.
it's weird because someone has that handle already and you can't get in. Like,
I know,
Crazy.
okay, yeah. So just find us on our website. It'll link you to all the social media. It'll link you to donation pages, which, by the way, if you're interested in supporting us, we are a grassroots community-based people first campaign. So every dollar helps us get to the primary and beyond. We truly appreciate your support. And for folks that want to meet me in person, we're actually having an event on, let me check, May 21st, which I believe is a Thursday night, 7 p.m., Virginia Beach, Laskin Road at Ace Studios. So come and check us out. The event will be on our website and also Facebook page and Instagram. So you can RSVP there. It's going to be an art show and also supporting our local community artists, especially in the Vibe District. Um, yeah, you should totally come, by the way.
I am gonna be out of state that day, which is really I'm really sad about this because I work in the arts here in Hampton Roads, and now I'm, like, really jazzed and very mad that that this is how
Okay.
it is. But
Oh my god. But
May 21st at Ace Studios in Virginia Beach.
mm,
Go there,
7 p.m. Yeah,
7 PM.
be
Be
there or
there.
be square. Yeah.
Yeah, be there, be square. Be there for me. Go for me.
Yeah.
It's not fair. Okay, Neela, thank you so much for the time today. I am very jazzed about your campaign. I'm sure we'll be talking more soon since we are Hampton Roads girlies. And everyone else, if Neela is the candidate of your dreams, make sure you support her through volunteerism, through donations. You don't have to be in Virginia to do either of those things. Um, and also go through her social media and just, like, hit all the buttons on all the posts, right? Like, this is called social media banking. You literally just find a profile that you like, and you go through and you hit likes and reposts and whatever the algorithm likes these. Comment on things, be like, "This is great," you know? Just anything to help push it to eyeballs because when it comes to primaries in particular, name recognition is a big deal. If people don't know there's another option, they're just gonna go with the name that they recognize. This is how voters are. Just the way it is. So if you're trying to look for ways to help, go through social media bank, volunteer, donate to Nila for Congress. Nila, thank you so much for being the candidate of our dreams.
Oh, thank you so much, Kate, for having me. And seriously, thank you to all of your followers as well. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to me. I like to get into the policy and I'd love to meet you also. Thank you.
Thanks, Nila. Bye bye.